If you want to have a smooth and enjoyable trip the next time you come to Thailand, then avoid making these 12 mistakes. Let's get stuck in. Mistake number one is trying to haggle for absolutely everything. There's a time and a place for it, and even though in Thailand a lot of the time prices are negotiable, that doesn't mean everything is. I've heard of people walking into family-owned stores and trying to haggle down cans of Coke, down from the equivalent of about 20 pence or 30 cents US, then either getting chased out, shouted at. And what do you expect? Imagine going into Tesco or Walmart or your equivalent superstore or little shop back home and trying to haggle for everyday things. It wouldn't go down so well. There's a time and a place for it. Generally speaking, food isn't negotiable, drink isn't negotiable, but things like travel, like taxis, like clothing at a market or souvenirs, generally these things are negotiable, but use a little bit of common sense with it. And one little thing I like to always go into every situation with is knowing how much I'm happy to pay. If they quote me a slightly higher price than maybe I had in mind, if it's 10 to 20% more, but you're happy paying it and you can pay it and you know it will be good value for you and good value for them still, it might just be worth still doing it, because at the end of the day it might be a small thing for you, but it might make a big difference for them. And if you're happy with it, then both parties are happy. Happy days. That's a lot of happies, wasn't it? And just whatever you do, don't be the in the shop trying to haggle down a can of Coke. Nobody likes that guy. Number two, and it's just a quick one, maybe a bit of common sense, but also not common sense. Don't leave your card in an ATM machine here. Different to the UK, and I'm pretty sure different to other countries, you get your cash before you get your card here, whereas in the UK you have to take your card and then get the cash for obvious reasons. But for some reason here they're a little bit behind with that, or just have chose to take a different route, which means it is easy, especially if you've had a few beers, to leave your card in the machine. Just always try and keep it in your brain, grab the card, grab the card, grab the card when you go and get cash out. It'll save you a lot of stress, a lot of hassle, and it's such an easy mistake to make. And whilst we're on money, number three is exchanging money at a lower rate back home. It does make sense, in my opinion, to bring a little bit of cash from back home in Thai baht that you've got exchanged, but generally speaking you're going to get a much better rate getting it done here. So if you can, bring some cash with you and get it exchanged at a better rate in Thailand with your home currency like Australian dollars, US dollars, British pounds or euros. A little something I've been told but haven't actually backed up or fact checked myself is that the crisper and the bigger the notes you bring, i.e. a £50 brand new English or a $100 US bill or a $100 Australian bill, will get you a better exchange and currency rate than if you give them a £20, £10, $10, $20 bill that might have been doing the rounds a few times. Number four on this list is not wearing certain clothing to sacred sites, i.e. the Big Buddha in Phuket or the Grand Palace in Bangkok. It will be enforced sometimes. I've seen people get away with it other times. It can be hot out, hence why most people are in vests or summer clothing. But it's just worth noting that if you are going to a temple or the Grand Palace or a site like the Big Buddha, you'll be expected to cover your shoulders and cover your knees. For guys, that just means shorts that are down to the knees, not short shorts. No one needs short shorts anyway. For women, it will be covering the shoulders and covering the knees, so something like a long skirt with a t-shirt. Again, it won't always be enforced, but it's the cultural etiquette and the respectful thing to do, so just abide by it to avoid any trouble, to avoid offending anyone and potentially getting yourself in any bother. One little personal story on this: 37, 38 degrees in April, Bangkok, about 5 years ago, going into the Grand Palace, and the only clothing we had were like coats and trousers, and honestly it was very, very, very hot. If you're renting a bike here in Thailand, two things you want to know: one, don't rent a bike and drive like a but I'll move on to that in a sec. And two, if you see a curb with red and white striped paint, don't park there. You could get fined, your bike could get taken away, or it could just be chained up when you get back. Haven't seen it happen too often, but I have seen it happen a couple of times, and I know they do enforce it. Second thing with driving like an idiot is people crash here, people get hurt here, people die here every single year. tourists, locals alike. So if you're riding a scooter, just have your wits about you. Crashes are common and police fines are common too. Just because it's easy to rent a bike here, it doesn't make you Valentino Rossi. So calm it down on that front and dodge the red and white curbs. Them 2 points alone will take you pretty far on the bike. Number 6 on this list is not researching the time of year when you're actually coming. So even though it's going to be hot most of Thailand, most of the year round, it does differ a little bit from place to place. So it's hard to ever give a blanket statement of this month to this month is the best. Do a little bit of research yourself on the places you're planning to go and at which time of year you're going. Be mindful of the burning season up north. That can be smoky. The pollution and air quality can be very bad. Be mindful of the hottest time of the year, March and April generally for most of the country, and May. Be mindful of the wettest months of the year, September, October and November. Generally for a lot of the country, November could also be dry in certain parts. Again, you could do a whole video on the different regions and places in Thailand and the different weathers that they all get. So I'm not going to try and cover that all, but just do a little bit of research about where you're wanting to go and where you plan to go at the time of year, so you don't come expecting blue skies all the time and it just be pissing it down instead. One last little side note on that. Just because it's the wet season or monsoon season, it doesn't mean it will rain all the time. A lot of places are more wet at certain times of year, so make sure you look into that. Number 7. Just as I haven't tried squeezing too much into this video and explaining every single weather pattern across the country, A, because I don't know it, and B, because I don't have enough time, number 7 is trying to squeeze too much into one trip. So if you've only got 2 weeks here and you want to have some relaxation time and you want to chill, then trying to be in one place for 2 days, the next place for 2 days, Chiang Mai, Bangkok, Phuket, Samui, Chiang Rai, Pai, all of these different places, and you're going to go to Phi Phi for 2 days, you're going to end up either burnt out, a little bit just tired, or you're just not going to end up actually enjoying or being able to take in the places that you want to take in. It completely depends on the length and duration you've got to be here in Thailand, and also how much energy you've got to want to move around. But in my experience, less is more, and find the places that you would like to visit the most and feel like tick the most boxes for you, and maybe do 30% less places but spend 30% more time in them. So my last video got cut off because the camera overheated, so we're going to resume back at point number 8. And point number 8 is not budgeting properly. There's a lot of things online that will say you can stay in luxury accommodation for £10 a night or $10 a night and all this. You can get by on very little in Thailand, but you're not going to thrive on that amount of money. So if you're coming for a luxury type holiday, do expect to be paying a little bit more. It's still a cheap destination, but not budgeting properly is a very common pitfall, especially amongst the backpacker crowd, thinking they're going to get by on 500 English pounds or $600-700 US dollars each month and still live like a king. It's not going to happen. Yes, you could get by on that if you're living in cheap hostels, cheap accommodation and living like a local, but if you want to do any excursions or do any holiday type stuff, you're going to need to budget for a little bit more. Number 9 on this list is drinking tap water. Don't do it. You are going to be sick. It's something that you will only do because it's habitual, or you might brush your teeth with it, or something along them lines. You might mix something in with the water. Do not do it. You will be unwell. The Thais don't do it. Nobody drinks tap water here. It's not good for us. Ice cubes in restaurants generally are fine. I've heard people say that they've been sick from it and don't drink it. I always have ice cubes literally daily in a lot of things I drink, and they source the ice cubes from external businesses each day, so that ice isn't just made from tap water. I've personally always been fine. I can't say that you definitely will be, but it's not something I would worry about. The ice cubes generally are fine, but do not drink the tap water. Number 10, simple one, travel insurance. It's something you won't know how much you need it until you need it. Hospital bills in Thailand aren't super cheap, and if you end up in there by necessity, they're going to keep racking up and racking up. Save yourself, your family, potentially your friends some money by getting travel insurance beforehand. Do it proactively, not reactively, is something that you want to have always. Number 11 is something that I don't know too much about, but it's very important, and if you're coming here as a first timer particularly, is something you want to be aware of. Probably won't be too relevant, still important information to know, and that is disrespecting, making jokes or criticizing the monarchy or royal family in Thailand is illegal. So it's worth noting that and knowing it. It's highly disrespectful and is genuinely a crime here, so don't do it. And the final one, number 12, is avoid scams in Bangkok, Phuket and other touristy areas. Generally, if you have your wits about you, you will be able to avoid these, but there's a couple obvious ones to avoid. The tuk-tuks are a popular one. It's not that all tuk-tuks are scams, it's that a popular scam involves a tuk-tuk, and what they will try and do is get you in, try and show you around for a super cheap price, but they'll take you to all these shops, they'll try and get you to pay for stuff and peer pressure you and just make things pretty uncomfortable. Another common one is the jet ski scam. I've come across the tuk-tuk one. I've genuinely been tried to be scammed a couple of times in Bangkok in a tuk-tuk, and where somebody comes and befriends you and tries being nice to you, and out of nowhere a tuk-tuk pulls up, they get you in, they try and take you in all these shops. But the jet ski one I've never came across, but I know a lot of people that have, and effectively what they will do, you will go out on the jet ski, they will try and point at damages that you've done to the jet ski when you get back, and you have to pay. There's a few other scams. Generally you're not going to come across these all the time. People try and say it happens all the time everywhere you go. It doesn't, but it's something to be aware of. Guys, as with all countries, I'm sure this list could be endless if you wanted to make it about every single mistake you could make in Thailand, but these are the ones that I feel are obvious but also not so obvious and will be helpful when coming to Thailand, particularly for first timers. So avoid making these 12 mistakes, and if you've got any to add, leave it in the comments below, or if you disagree with any after being here before, let me know in the comments as well. And as always, I appreciate you tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.